Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man, so I'm back. I never went anywhere, man. I just got kind of busy. But I did have a request like 5,000 years ago from Kg2 Bg7, one of my good friends now. So as always, all my people that are coming from the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking mga kaibigan. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. But I did have a Bobby Fischer request. So any of those of you out there who love Bobby Fischer, this is going to be one of the games. As you guys know, Samuel Reshevsky was a child prodigy himself. You know, he was playing, I think at like the age of like 6 or 7 or something like that. He was like super small, playing all these, you know, old time people. But anyways, I have a game that it was from 1957. It was a New York tournament of 1957. You know, it's a pretty nice one. It kind of has some familiarity with kind of how I play myself. So if you guys are ready to go, let's jump in and see what we got for this game, homie. So we got the move C4. So we start off with the English, you know, the English opening. But, you know, 90% of the time, I'd say maybe 80 or 90%, it does transpose over into something else, which is what we're going to see in this game. We got knight to F6. We got knight to C3. We got the move G6, knight to F3, bishop to G7, and then the move D4. And we have gotten into the King's Indian defense. You can also get to this move order, of course, playing D4 first and then playing C4 after knight to F6, which is the way that I personally go about doing it. And I don't commit my knight to F3 immediately. I kind of see what, you know, black is deciding to do. We got castles by black. We got the move E4. And, I mean, there are maybe a few games where this move hasn't been played. But 98, 99% of the time when you play this particular opening, you are going to see the move D6 as black. Because, you know, white has a really, really nice center. And you really don't want any E5s coming. Because, I mean, you know, where are you really kind of putting your knight? You're not really wanting to go down here. You're not wanting to go down here. I mean, the only option to go back is knight to E8. So, I mean, it kind of undermines what you've just done with your knight. So we do see the move D6. Like I said, bishop to E2. We got C6. We got castles by white. We got the move A6. You know, most of you players that do play against the King's Indian or like a Sicilian or something like that, you guys should see what black is wanting to do. They're just super preparing the move B5, which is what we're going to see in the game. We have rook over to E1, and this is the novelty of the game as of 1957. We've seen it since then. You know, you're basically just reinforcing, you know, your center, you know, because like I said, you know, white does have a really, really nice center here. So, I mean, you know, support it, because if not, it's going to get attacked. And that is one of the main points of the hypermodern school of chess. So we do see the move B5, like I said. We got B3, we got B4. And then we get into the thumbnail that you guys saw, and we do see the move E5. This is a very, very common move that you play in some King's Indians. You know, pushing E5, you know, after the pawn takes, you got the pawn taken back, and you have a really, really beautiful central pawn. And like I said, that move rook to E1 really comes, and it makes a lot of sense. So we do see pawn taking D5, pawn taking D5, and both of these knights on the board are on pre. For those of you who are not aware of the term on pre, it is just intake is what it means. So pawn takes C3, pawn takes F6, of course. Bishop takes F6, and then we do see bishop to H6. Queen taking, we got rook taking, and another one of the interesting things about rook to E1, even though it kind of looked like a slightly passive move, is the fact that we now have completely open files on the D and E file. And so these rooks are actually really, really powerful. Even though, I mean, the computer basically is like, you're dead even, bro. We got rook over to E8. Pretty much the only move. I mean, you could have went back to G7 with the bishop, but it was just a little bit passive. We got bishop up to D3, knight down to D7. We got bishop to E4. Why not attack this pawn on C6? So black defends it, right? No, they do not defend it. They say, man, I don't care nothing about this pawn, homie. And he goes knight to C5. This is actually, it's not a blunder, but it is a mistake. You know, you are giving away this pawn, and then you're also forking your rooks with the bishop. You know, you are going to be winning the exchange if you are white. So it's not like it's completely won, but it definitely is a much better position for white to be playing. So we got bishop taking C6. Of course, you're going to take the material. If you don't have, I mean, unless you have like a good reason not to. Bishop does go to f5. We got the move g4. And I'm going to have to be honest with you. I don't know if this is a 50s thing, but I have no idea what g4 is supposed to be doing. This is a really, really creative way to create Luft if you're white, but I don't understand it. So neither did Bobby Fischer. He said, bro, you know what? This doesn't make no sense to me. And now you have another problem. Bishop took g4. Now you have to protect the knight some kind of way because you don't want to give up your own exchange. So we see king to g2. We got bishop back to f5. Bishop takes a8. Rook takes a8. And then we do see the move knight to d4. You know, one of the interesting things that I'm noticing about the position is this pawn over here that's just kind of hovering in space. You know, this bishop is, protecting it kind of, not really through the knight, but it was protecting it up until this point. But I just think it's really just kind of like funny. Like it's just kind of floating there, like in white's position. So we do see the move knight to d3. We got knight taking f5, which is the absolute top move in the position. You know, you really can't leave this back rank because that pawn will kind of start to push and stuff like that. And if you notice, one of the things about the position is this knight is protecting this queening square. So you kind of need to leave your rooks in place, which is what Reshevsky does. And it does take away the defender of this knight. So we have to add in knight takes e1 with check first. We got rook taking e1. We got pawn taking f5. We got the rook back over to d1. Now, in this particular position, we're not really too worried about this pawn pushing because we do have bishop taking on c1. And the king is not on the back rank, so we don't have to worry about maybe the rook swinging over and checking and stuff like that. So we're good to go. But we do see the move e5. We got c5. Why not push this pawn, bro? A rook goes to c8. We got b4. We got f4. King comes up to f3. And then we do have the move bishop to e7. You know, if you don't do anything, if you're black, I mean, these pawns can't get rolling. And once these pawns reach this 6th rank right here, they can overpower an entire rook. That is one of the in-game concepts that we have. But we have actually reached a point in the game that if you do want to pause the video, white has a completely winning move in this position. So if you want to pause the video and try to guess that move, go ahead and do so. Okay, cool. So I think probably like 9 out of 10 of you guys out there are going to get this because when you are presented with the problem or when you're in your game, you're considering moves. What is one of the main things that you consider in that particular position? And it is checks. It's checks and captures mostly, but a check is like almost always going to be something that's going to enter into your mind that you're going to start calculating first because you never know. It might be a checkmate situation coming up. So if in this particular position, you guess the move rook to g1 with check, this is absolutely correct. And this wins actually quite a bit of material if you're white. What we actually saw in the game was king up to e4. And this wasn't a bad move, but it just wasn't nowhere near as crushing as rook to g1 with check. But if we go down this rook to g1 rabbit hole, black really only has one logical move. The only other move that defends the check is bishop to g5. But as you guys can see, I mean, that just completely throws away the bishop. And it doesn't change anything that black has to do. So as far as king moves go, king to h8 is the only move. And then you are going to be looking at bishop to g7 with check. The problem with that is you don't have anywhere to go other than to g8. And then after that, you have a discover check with bishop going to e5. And the rook is still checking. And now you only have, king to e8 or king to f8. And then you do have bishop taking c3. And you can see that white now has won a bunch of material. They are up a pawn. They do have these passed pawns right here. And this king is very active. This pawn is really, really hard to hold because how do you protect this pawn coming up? So it's just really, really not a position that Bobby Fischer wants to be in. So thankfully, Reshevsky does go king to e4 and doesn't strap Bobby with all of that pain. And we see the saving rook to c6. And now if we do see rook to g1 with check, which is what we actually see in the game, we see this nice little move rook to g6. And I mean, of course we want white to take right here because then we can take back and fix our pawn structure and everything's all great. And which is what we see in the game. And so you see that black is up a pawn. They do have same color bishops. So, I mean, it's not like it's just completely won. It is actually a fairly even game. Opposite color, same color bishops. They're very similar as far as drawing goes. So you kind of need a little bit more material than one pawn. But we'll see what goes on. So we got king down to d3. We're going to try to snap this pawn down here. We got king down to f7. King takes c3. And then we have a really cute move. It's actually not the best move, but it makes a lot of sense. And it is actually going to be coming up in the future of the game, like how great this move actually ends up being. But it is blocking this bishop from trying to retreat. So, I mean, you're not looking too great as far as bishops go. This bishop is much better than this bishop over here. But let's continue. We do see the move c6. We got king down to e6. We got king to c4. King goes to d6. And it is this position that Samuel Reshevsky actually plays. What seems to actually be a really logical move. But there is a problem connected to it. So I will show you this variation, and then I'll show you what he had to play to get into a drawn position. We got the move b5. So it seems like, okay, you know, I'm gonna, get the captures on b5. I'm gonna get my king more in a position, and this is a light square and he has a dark square bishop. So, I mean, it's gonna be good. But the problem is you have way too many pawns in the center of the board if you're black. So the pawn takes b5, king takes b5, and then you have the problem with the move e4. And you have just moved your king too far away from influencing these pawns. And like I said, this bishop is kind of sad on this particular part of the board. So backing up, after the move king to d6, we actually had to see the move c7, and we are using our pawn to deflect the king away so that we can shift over to the king side and start trying to take some pawns. And it might look something like this. King taking c7, king going to d5. You would probably see g4. You got a3. Just making sure that we're good over here on the king side. Bishop goes to h4, king takes e5, g3, pawn takes g3, pawn takes g3, pawn takes g3, bishop takes g3, king up to f6, the king goes down to c6. And what you are going to do is you are going to trade these pawns off, and you are going to go after this pawn. Since this pawn is currently sitting on a light square, this bishop has no influence over that at all, and you're just going to get into a completely drawn type of an endgame. But like I said, we did not see that. We did see this problem here. And I think at this point, Samuel Reshevsky, he kind of realizes that he's in kind of a dire situation. So he tries to backtrack with king to c4, but this just allows bishop to f6. And as you guys can see, there are no penetration that this king can do in this position. And this bishop over here is like, bro, I'm sad, bro. Like, what are we doing? So we got the move h4, trying to, break some things open. We got the move f3. Which maybe a little bit further up the board would be a bad thing because your pawns are frozen as black, but because you are so close to queening, it is a really good thing. So pawn takes g5, and then we see the move e3. And like I said, you see where the problems are in the situation. We do see bishop going to f8 with check. Bishop goes to e7. Bishop takes e7. King takes e7. We got the move c7. But then we see the move king to d7, and it is in this position that Samuel Reshevsky resigns the game. Now, for those of you that aren't 100% sure why he resigned the game, if we back up in the situation that we have. After bishop takes and king takes, you do have the problem with taking here. Like, you really don't have anything you can do in this position, right? This pawn is holding this pawn from going anywhere. You do have this situation where if this pawn takes here like this, you are going to be looking at f2, and the king just is not close enough. It is not in the square of the pawn right now. The square of the pawn is this little 2x2x2 square. The king cannot step into that square. The king has to be able to step into the square to prevent the pawn from queening. So we do not have that. And in this position here, if you do nothing, you just literally see e2, e1. Or even pawn takes here and then f1. It's all completely winning if you're black. So, like I said, it is in that position that Samuel Reshevsky resigns the game, even though he has a completely outside pass pawn on the outside of the board. You see the bar is like not liking white at all. So yes, hopefully that game was exciting for you. If you're a true chess fan, at least I know one person that's gonna be happy with the game. But anyways, I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Maraming salamat aking makaibigan, and I will see you guys next time.